The president usually leads the discussion with the chosen heads of the key departments, from Justice to State to Pentagon. Those are people seated around the table. And yet, what you see here on your screen was something different. It is a contrast to what has occurred literally since the country's founding. The most important posts are in the cabinet. Some posts, by the way, get elevated to the cabinet to show that they're important, like Homeland Security, which was added to the cabinet after 9/11. Others are removed over time, like the post office. But as you see here, and I'm going to leave this on screen just for the visual of what happened, the first part of today's cabinet meeting was dominated by a non-cabinet official. And because he's not in the cabinet, he was not seated with those other officials. He's just standing there, the billionaire special employee, Elon Musk, not elected to a position, not confirmed by the Senate like every other member of the cabinet at the table. So this already was something very different, and it comes amidst growing concern from Republican lawmakers and Democrats, from people at town halls, including in red districts, from experts and other critics about these Musk cuts and how they affect your safety and your life. So there is something very serious alongside the visual. And so before we go any further and people talk about what's happening now and whether it should be happening, we want to show you how United States cabinet meetings have functioned throughout our history across both parties.
As you can see, we're about to have a cabinet meeting, the primary purpose of which is to discuss the budget negotiations that will be going on now until the end of Congress.
We just had a very productive cabinet meeting. There's little time left before the Senate and the House goes home. But we're optimistic a lot can get done between now and then.
Part of the reason that I wanted to bring the cabinet together today is to underscore for them my belief, I think shared by most Americans, that we can't wait for Congress to actually get going on issues that are vital to the middle class.
As a baseline, that is just what the cabinet meetings always look like. The president with his cabinet seated around the table for the cabinet meeting. Today, instead, you had an unelected billionaire filling or forcing his way into center stage, upstaging the actual cabinet, which defines a cabinet meeting, and then continuing on to make the case for these cuts to, remember, different agencies and departments led by the people chosen by the president, confirmed by the Senate at the table. So this is the first time we've actually physically, visually seen it. And what Musk did today, now with that history I will show you just a little bit, was mix in his non-cabinet perspective or opinion, if you want to call it that, on the cabinet Trump chose. That itself is odd because unlike these individuals who, whatever you think of them, did go by the rules through the Senate vetting, co-equal branch of government to get into the White House and serve their post, unlike all of them, he's just here taking charge, talking, standing over them, the body language somewhat obvious, and then acting like his opinion of the cabinet matters. He is the self-appointed outside auditor, a reviewer in the room.
President Trump has put together, I think, the best cabinet ever. This is an incredible group of people. I don't think that such a talented team has actually ever been assembled. I think it's literally the best cabinet that the country has ever had.
Musk applying that public flattery in this setting with the cameras on that will play out in the traditional press and online. And I've told you, we will fact check, we will give you context, but we will also show you what's happening. So there you saw some of it. But Musk knows very well the coverage that Trump covets. And so by saying that set of words in that environment, he's trying to help get Trump what he wants. White House aides, meanwhile, are pressuring and changing and trying to distort what would be independent press coverage. The White House trying to control access and pressure outlets to, in their view, say what the government demands or get booted. That's pay for play. That's transactional. In many societies, that would be considered blatantly corrupt. For example, the nonpartisan AP has always covered the White House, and they're being pressed and limited for their access if they don't say the words the government wants. By the way, traditionally conservative movements are skeptical of the government trying to tell you what you hear or what to think. Here, maybe it's just not conservative. It's just MAGA demands. Say these words or get kicked out. As for the remainder, we can show you, and this is important as part of our coverage tonight, how the Trump-aligned, more friendly media are responding to these pressures and the assignment.
First of all, did you ever imagine that you would be press secretary to such a dynamic president?
The Harvard poll that came out had you up 9+ points, and all of your agenda that you ran on, you're accomplishing that. You got the support of the American people, including stopping the war in Ukraine. If you can comment on the latest Harvard poll, I'd appreciate that.
Just came in. Somebody sent it. I said, this was sent in by a fan, and I know him well. He's sort of a stiff. I said, Brian, you're not a stiff.
Always say yes to the president. Always say yes to the
Would
president.
anybody?
Throwing hats out to the crowd because some in the crowd want the hats because that's how cozy it is. Now, again, the hypocrisy stories write themselves. A lot of these same folks had their criticisms of what they said were traditional or mainstream media being what they called too solicitous or friendly to other administrations, Democratic or otherwise. And you never saw that. I mean, you never saw any reporters from the AP ask for hats from any administration because it's way past the line of being neutral. The fawning praise that you saw here, some of it may even approach a kind of self-parody. It was actually satirized in the past in general, not obviously this specific example, but the tendency of this type of thing in politics by The Simpsons, a famous episode where Homer's very rich boss, I don't know if he was a billionaire, but he was a very rich guy, you might remember, Monty Burns, running for office. And Lisa gets roped into reading a question that was planted by that rich politician's team.
Mr. Burns, your campaign seems to have the momentum of a runaway freight train. Why are you so popular?
Ooh, a tough question, but a fair one. Lisa, there's no single answer. Some voters respond to my integrity. Others are more impressed with my incorruptibility. Still others by my determination to lower taxes, and the bureaucrats in the state capitol can put that in their pipes and smoke it.
Oh, Mom, that felt awful.
Now, I can tell you in The Simpsons fictional episode, the Monty Burns campaign ultimately fell apart. We don't know what will happen in this ongoing effort, but we are seeing that the billionaires demanded cuts done in a fast, disruptive style that often is not saving the United States government money because they have been rushed out and are being sometimes stopped or slowed down in the courts, are also, even very quickly, in a couple weeks, already finding huge political and civic backlash around the country, including in red districts. House Republicans have found this at recent town halls. Then there are some Fox News hosts and other sort of general allies of the Trump agenda who are looking at this and saying maybe there needs to be a bit more caution and compassion.
A little bit of humanity and dignity to the process, I think, is what many of the Alaskan federal employees are asking for.
We just need to be a little bit less callous with the way, Harold, we talk about doging people.
They need to be respectful of people that are involved in these agencies.
I do think there are some valid concerns about the speed that this is happening.
I finally found one person I knew that got doged, and it hit me in the heart.
I think they need to be more targeted and they need to be more thoughtful.
Then there are reports of jolted Republicans behind the scenes who are flatly asking to stop Musk cuts, at least in their districts. And remember, you can see the pieces following together here. A lot of concern in their districts, protests, opposition. I showed you some of the town halls. So they say, let's dial back the town halls. That's an emergency Band-Aid. But then also some are saying, cuts for thee, but not for me. Do them somewhere else. I can't defend them here in my red district. Musk, meanwhile, continues to traffic in misleading or outright complete misinformation about what has been, remember, a hidden and secret process. He is not a member of the cabinet, which is very deliberate because he doesn't have to share his financials under those rules or face testing and grilling under oath. That's secret, not transparent. He's vowed to hide his own financial information with Trump, a tradition that Trump has done. That's not against the law because he's using this special loophole as an employee rather than a member of the cabinet while he lords over the cabinet today. Keep those facts in mind as he falsely talks about transparency.
We bring the receipts. So people say, like, well, is this real? Just go to doge.gov. We line item by line item, we specify each item. So, and I should say, we will make mistakes. We won't be perfect. But when we make a mistake, we'll fix it very quickly. So, for example, with USAID, one of the things we accidentally canceled very briefly was Ebola, Ebola prevention.
Just Ebola, and now we're back on it, is what he was getting at there. And you could see the cabinet sitting through this, again, at a cabinet meeting. Donald Trump, the president, could hold a meeting about spending and cuts. He could hold an efficiency meeting, whatever they want to call it. This was a cabinet meeting, and Musk takes over quite purposefully. He's referencing, of course, one of the errors they made. The site he referenced has just put up false information. It doesn't appear to be operating the way more reputable parts of the government historically operate, with vetting and career data officials working on stuff. Like if you go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, instead, he's got these headlines that basically talk about how they're just putting up false information. Musk, for example, talked about huge savings in Social Security that weren't true. 40% of the contracts they've pulled generate no savings, meaning they're canceling things which affect government services, but it's already paid out. You take it all together, and you have a cabinet meeting, the first of this term, dominated by a non-cabinet member, offering misinformation about a bunch of program cuts that not only did no one ask for, but even Republicans are saying, please, if that's Elon Musk's help, don't do it in our district. No help wanted.